Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson, absent. Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Forster, absent. Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Councilmember Wills.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Here, please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, slow things down here. Let's get them. All right. We have no presentations or awards this evening and no personal appearances. So we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In addition to my written report, looks like the weather may cooperate this weekend. We do have a stream cleanup scheduled for 8:30 Saturday morning at Good Parkway. Lori Crandall is putting that on, and she does a pretty good job. Just look for the signs and appreciate anyone that can come and help. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions of staff? All right. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Krass. I would ask Mr. Mustine to make a report for Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, members of the council, I've also submitted a written report, just a couple highlights. Last Saturday, our outdoor spring soccer season started. This weekend, our flag football season and our volleyball leagues start this weekend. So it is definitely springtime, and we're kicking it in high gear. We have a week from Saturday, April 8th, is our Easter Egg Festival. That just a quick reminder that has been moved. It is at Recreation Park. We moved that last year. Great success. We're doing that again this year. The hunt starts at 10 a.m., so I recommend everybody be there early because we don't wait. Once you get that many kids out there, you have to go on time. So be early for that. It is 4th grade and under, so from 0 to 4th grade. If you can get them out there, we'll take them. And finally, we have an opening in our park maintenance department for a maintenance 1 worker. So if you know anybody who's a hard worker and likes to work outside, we'd be happy to entertain some applications. And that concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Barber, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nathan, we spoke before the meeting, but could you kind of give the council and everybody an update on Hawk Ridge, because there's a lot going on with the playground and everything that's going on with it right now.
Absolutely. Just like Mike said, great weather out there, we're able to get some things done. So we have the contractors are out there. There's some play equipment that we purposefully, because of weather, we held back. We just didn't want it to weather for no purpose. So they're out there this week putting those things up and getting ready. The last thing the playground contractors will do is the surfacing. And so we want to get everything ready to go with that. And then my staff, we're doing some significant landscaping and just prepping of the park and making it look good. And we are on track right now for end of April grand opening is what we're hoping for, and that is all weather related. You all know as well as I do, spring can be snow one day and 80 the next day, so we have to be consistent for the surfacing. But everything is going, and we're looking forward to having that project complete and open. And knock on wood, we'll get that done in a few weeks.
Great. Few weeks?
End of April. We're going to call it the end of April.
Okay, all right. Yes, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was curious, what kind of sustained temperatures do we need to have to get that rubber surface to?
For the rubber surfacing, it really needs to be at 45 to 50 degrees night temperatures so that it will cure well. And that's at least 3 days in a row. So that's what we're watching for. And it'll get there. It's just kind of volatile still.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Mustine. I would ask Ms. Harmer to make a report.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Last November, Missouri voters approved an amendment to the state's constitution to make the use and sale of recreational adult use marijuana legal for adults over the age of 21 in the state. The amendment also placed a 6% state sales tax on the purchase of recreational marijuana and authorized local governments to add a 3% sales tax. So On April 4th at the polls, in addition to Raymore voters choosing one council seat, electing a council member to one seat in their ward, there also will be the question of an additional sales tax on the retail sale of adult use marijuana. And the question is on the ballot, shall the city of Raymore impose an additional sales tax of 3% on the retail sale of adult use non-medical marijuana? So if voters approve the question, the city of Raymore will collect an additional 3% sales tax on purchases made within the city. The additional 3% tax will not apply to medical marijuana, only to recreational marijuana. And the funds collected from the tax will be allocated to the city's general fund. A lot of people think that the general fund is just whatever. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the general fund pays for the core administrative and operational expenses of the city. Some of those expenses do include personnel, all expenses of the Raymore Police Department, including the 911 dispatching expenses, animal control, court operations, also pothole patching, street lights, and the electricity that we have to pay for those street lights, snow removal, salt and brine, also like things like the annual community paper shredding event, membership in the program that allows residents to safely dispose of their household hazardous waste year-round at mobile collection events and permanent facilities. And also, new this year, landfill opposition expenses are paid for from the general fund. So that's our special legal counsel, public relations, and government relations. So just want to give a heads up. We'll start sharing information on social media here. I already created a web page for this question, which I created, I think, last week. And then one more just note that there's also a sales tax question on Cass County for the 3%. That won't stack on Raymore's if Raymore's passes and Cass County's passes. It'll just be the city of Raymore will collect that in the city of Raymore. Cass County can collect outside of the city of Raymore.
Okay.
I think that's all I have tonight. There are other things going on if anyone has any questions, but.
Yes, there are a lot of things going on. Anybody have any questions? Yes, Mr. Holman.
Great report, Melissa. I just don't know if you had, you didn't mention, but I assume you were aware of the fact that since the push to legalize recreational marijuana in the United States, political subdivisions have seen an increase on the demand for public services when such substances have been made legal. The case in point and the closest neighbor would be the state of Colorado. You have an increase in driving under the influence. You have an increase in people in crisis. Those are burdens on city government that demand reimbursement because those are direct costs that come to our city as well. I don't know if there were any figures on that, but I thought I might mention that. It's not just let's tax this because we can. There will be some costs to the taxpayers as a result of this passing.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Doverwood.
Thank you, sir. And just another note, you mentioned that Cass County also has this on the ballot. There are multiple other cities in Cass County and around the state that have this on the ballot. Do you know off the top of your head who in Cass County also has it?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you everyone in Cass County, but I can tell you there are 105 plus cities in the state of Missouri with this on the ballot.
So we're not unique in asking.
Not the
for
only
this.
one.
Anyone else? Thank you. Mr. Fearborn?
Just a couple items for the council tonight from me. Next Monday, April 3rd, 2023 work session, there will be mayoral appointments on for your review, and there will be the changes in code that I talked to you about last time when we had to cancel the meeting. As far as changes necessary in code associated with the audit that we had on our court system. Just some cleanup stuff that we want to go through. There's a little bit of detail to it. Slim chance that we would have to be back down in Jefferson City, so stay tuned on that. Seems to be a Monday, Tuesday kind of thing developing for us. Lastly, I am very pleased and proud to report that for the 10th year in a row, the City Finance Department, led by Ms. Williams in the back, has been recognized with the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the audit year 2021. So congratulations to them. A lot of hard work goes into
It is
this
a
one.
lot of hard work. Thank you, Jim. Any questions of Mr. Fearborn? Seeing none, we'll move right along. Anything else, sir, before I move on? Okay. All right, so under the consent agenda this evening, all we have is the city council meeting minutes for March the 13th. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of that item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the consent agenda item A, City Council minutes from March 13th, 2023.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3795 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3795 by title only, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for an industrial development project and a development and performance agreement between the City of Raymore, Missouri and Van Trust Development, LLC for the purpose of providing funds to pay for the costs of improving an industrial development project in the city and authorizing certain agreements and other actions by the city.
Thank you. Mr. Fearborn, did you want to mention anything? I noticed our legal counsel for that is here tonight.
Should you have any questions, special counsel is here this evening for this particular topic.
Thank
That's
you,
all
sir.
we have, sir.
Anyone have any additional questions before we move on? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3795, Raymore Commerce Center South Chapter 100 Plan for Industrial Development.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I will second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3795. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Holman.
I will be recusing myself before the reading and action on the next item, which is item B under the agenda, for the reasons stated at the previous read.
Thank you, sir. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3794 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3794 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Outdoor Solutions, LLC for the 2023 lawn and landscape services at identified locations throughout the city.
If there are no further discussion items on this, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3794, award of contract for lawn and landscape.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3794. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 5 yes, 1 abstention. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3791 by title only while Mr. Holman rejoins us at the dais?
The second reading of Bill 3791 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, correcting the legal description for the Oak Ridge Farms fourth plat rezoning application and correcting Scrivener's errors within.
Thank you, ma'am. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3791, correction to Oak Ridge Farms fourth plat rezoning legal description.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, let the record reflect I have rejoined the council at the dais, and I will second the motion.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3791. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3792 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3792 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Oak Ridge Farms fourth plat, lots 61 through 84, a replat of lot 58, Oak Ridge Farms fourth plat.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3792, Oak Ridge Farms fourth plat, lots 61 through 84, and replat of lot 58.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3792. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. And the last item under old business, could I please have the second reading of Bill 3793 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3793 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing stop signs within the city limits of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. If there are no further questions on this item, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of it.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the second reading of Bill 3793, establishing stop signs within Timber Trails development.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Olin. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3793. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3796 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3796 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, vacating a portion of a 25-foot rear yard utility easement located on Lot 181 in Edgewater at Creekmore 6th Plat, a subdivision in the City of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This item does require a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would call on Mr. Gress to make a staff report for this item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, the request before you this evening is a request to vacate approximately 17 feet of an existing 25-foot rear yard utility easement in the Creekmore subdivision, which would allow for the construction of a pool on the property at 807 Bridgeshire Drive. This is a fairly routine request within the Creekmore subdivision, particularly with lots that abut the golf course. Staff did contact all the utility companies that would have facilities in that easement, and no concerns were provided to staff. The requested vacation would leave approximately 8 feet along the rear property line, which is actually a more standard easement for a utility easement in a residential subdivision. Because the request did require a public hearing, we advertised the request in the February 22nd North Cass Herald newspaper, and the items of record include the notice of publication, the Unified Development Code, the application, growth management plan, staff report, and the plot plan submitted by the applicant. Staff does recommend that the council accept the findings of fact and approve this request. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Is the applicant here at this time? Nope. Hi there. I know right where you're at there. I usually hit from the white tees. That's a pretty hole, too, to hit from. I've admired those houses that sit right there, too. That is a little bit tight for you right there between that cart path and your place. Well, hopefully you'll have a nice pool there if this passes. If there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
This is not a
Oh,
water.
wait a second. I have a public hearing open at this time. Public hearing is open at this time. If anyone would like to speak to this item, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. At this time, you could come up and talk about it if you'd like to, but obviously, everybody's seen the report and kind of knows what's going on here. Seeing no one step forward, I'll close the public hearing, and then if there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3796, easement vacation for 807 Bridgeshire Drive, Edgewater at Creekmore 6th Plat, Lot 181.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3796. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Could I please, this is a resolution, so could I please have a reading of Resolution 23-08 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 2308 by title only, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving a one-year extension to the preliminary development plan for the Alera planned unit development.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Brenner Holland, representing Hunt Midwest, has submitted to the city a request to extend the preliminary plan for the Alera subdivision, the PUD zoning for that property. If the council can remember, it was on April 25th of 2022 that the zoning and the preliminary plan were approved in addition to the MOU. The code requires that if no final plan is filed within 1 year of that being approved, the plan should expire unless a request is received by the applicant to the city before that expiration date. Included in your packet were 2 letters requesting the extension by Hunt Midwest and Summit Homes. I know Brenner Holland with Hunt Midwest is here in the audience if there are any questions. The project does remain unchanged from its approved form. Development has just slowed down a little bit to cause them not to move forward with the project in their original time frame. Staff would recommend that the council approve this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of staff? Yes, Mr. Burke. Sorry, Jay. He had his hand
Thank you,
up first.
Mr. Mayor. Question about our actions that we took on February 27th with the Johnston Drive extension. If I remember correctly, we had to obtain the design from the firm that the developer hired. Is that correct, or am I mistaken?
No, you're correct. As part of the Alera plan, the developer was originally contemplating constructing that road and designing it themselves. Because the project got put on hold, staff indicated that we still wanted to move forward with it. And I'll let Mr. Krass confirm, but I think we're pretty well finished with the design or getting close to completing it.
So on the report on February 27th, it said that the developer has chosen not to proceed with the project. That was just 2 meetings ago.
They've indicated that this time they do not have a contract on the property to my knowledge, but they have not totally walked away. They indicated that the interest rates and other external factors have caused them not to move forward with the project at this time. The other side of this coin from Hunt Midwest perspective is that it keeps the property with an approved development plan that staff thought was a quality project. And so because nothing has changed with that to date, it could be Hunt Midwest that could proceed forward with it. It could be Summit Homes. It could be another developer. But staff felt that that plan was a quality development that we should keep relevant.
Thank you.
Mr. Holman,
Mr. Burke covered everything I was going to ask,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.
anyone else have any questions? Any questions of the developer? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve Resolution 23-08, preliminary plan extension for the Allura Planned Unit Development, PUD.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I will second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 23-08. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3797 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3797 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with McGrath Human Resources Group in the amount of $34,218 for the 2023 compensation class study for the City of Raymore.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Murdoch to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Good morning, Mayor. Good evening. Wow. Long days. That's where we're at, right? So good evening, Mayor and Council.
I'll be taking over the staff
right.
report, apparently.
Before you is Bill 3797, which was a budgeted amount for a compensation class study to be done to look at our overall organizational structure. We did receive 5 proposals. We narrowed down on the RFQ to 2 firms. We interviewed those firms, and we would recommend approval of McGrath Human Resources Group. I do want to make a note that initially, as a part of the RFQ, we were looking at a compensation class study. We now are going to do a total compensation analysis the group will do. It still fit within the approved budget, and so they'll be able to look at our benefits package as well as compensation ranges, all of those things as one complete product as a result of this particular contract. So we're very happy with that. Human Resources Manager Sean Auger is here to answer any questions if you have them in regards to this particular study, and that concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of staff at this time? Yes, Mr. Holman.
I have 2 questions. One, when was the last time we did one?
It's been almost 15 years.
Okay, perfect. And then the second one was, what kind of timeline generally would we expect before council would receive a report back on this?
There'll be a couple of different benchmarks that we'll have throughout this particular study. The preliminary findings of the study should be in by late summer, meaning essentially the end of July, with a final report coming after discussion with staff among McGrath Human Resources Group in the early fall.
Thank you.
So obviously not in time for consideration on next year's budget?
No, sir, and if Mr. Fearborn wants to add to this, we had that discussion about wanting to make sure that we got this one completely right and to not rush that particular process just based on our budget timelines. We can still incorporate the recommendations of this particular study as we go through the budget year.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Anybody else have any questions? All right. If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
move that we approve the first reading of Bill 3797, award of contract for compensation class study.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3797. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. That concludes our business for this evening. The next item is public comments. If anyone from the public would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public comment section. I'll move on to mayor-council communication. I'll start with Ms. Wills this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It looks like the planning for the farmers market has begun, as well as vendor applications for 2023 are now available, so that's very exciting. And I also wanted to just remind everyone to check out the city website if they are looking for part-time or full-time work, because positions are available. And lastly, make sure that everyone gets out and votes on April 4th. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mrs. Belgawad.
Thank you, sir. I, too, was just going to shout out that quick reminder to everybody to get out and vote next week. Always a very important election when we're looking at our local positions. And additionally, shout out to our finance department for receiving that recognition for the 900th time or so. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you. Mr. Ullman?
Thank you, sir. But one item this evening. I am very grateful that I live within a city such as ours. Great place to live, work and play, and do everything else. We're lucky to be here. We are doubly lucky that we have such a fantastic and hardworking staff. But beyond that, an element which you can't buy, which you can't train, is a staff that cares, that wants to do and does do the right thing and produces results for us, not just once, not twice, but time after time and year after year. We've seen it with probably the greatest current example has been the fight for the landfill. Everybody's aware of the House passing the perfection read, 136-19 or somewhere in that range overwhelmingly. The fight continues. We are focusing on the Senate, but we are a unified city because of the people that work so hard for us. Mr. Fearborn, my thanks, sir, and please pass that on to everyone that works for the city in any capacity.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to remind people the Easter egg hunt has moved to Rec Park. It's been a few years since I've had a fourth grader, so I would have been having trouble finding it if I had grandchildren. So that's important to know. Because that is, honestly, that's one of the best things. I mean, since I've moved here, that Easter egg hunt is like, out of a movie that you pay money and you're like, oh, this is the greatest town. I wish I lived somewhere, that mythical place there. That's one of the main, I don't know how many times I've talked to other parents back in the day. It's like, where are we? This is so special to watch all those kids running around everywhere. Anyway, I didn't really want to talk about that a lot, but I did want to say some people last week were a little confused about what we do here. And yeah, we start out, we have our staff reports, we have our consent agenda where those issues were all illustrated last week in the staff report, the last time we had a meeting. The new business, we have staff reports, and then next time we have a meeting, we'll have a second read. But the staff report isn't necessary 2 times. And so the meeting did go pretty short tonight, but a majority of the things had short staff reports. But sometimes people think that all we do is read the title of the bill and then move on and vote. We have a 217-page packet that is available online 24/7 And that's where I go to read about what we're doing. They do send it to us in paper, but it's always available. And if you have more questions, feel free to email any of us up here. We'd be glad to explain it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber?
Thank you, Your Honor. Boy, great comments tonight. I wanted to publicly thank Ms. Harmer for helping Councilman Holman this last week. We met with the Homeowners Association board and a couple of folks from the neighborhood and got to talk a little bit about what's going on and talk about communication. I know there were some comments about we need better communication or maybe different kind of communication, but if you look at our website and you look at the information that Ms. Harmer constantly is posting and reposting and how that website works, if I can get everything out of it, then anybody can. So we have one of the best websites, and plus with the new text messaging question, which I've tried to use that too, and it does work. I've tried to trick it, and you can't. But that works as well. So there's so many ways, and plus she's available too through email or giving her a call. But I did want to publicly recognize for her excellent job just in the day-to-day lives with the people of Raymore. Then you put the landfill on top of that, and she's just over the top. So I do appreciate that. I do want to tell folks, or remind folks, April 4th, is the election, and I will be out there at the polls, so I'm up for re-election. So look forward to seeing the folks from Ward 3, and let's just hope it's nice weather.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Townsend?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo the comments of my council colleagues. I would also want to extend a special thank you to our two council members who are departing us this election, Councilmember Wills and Councilmember Berenson in his absence. It's been a pleasure. Councilmember Wills, it's definitely been a pleasure serving with you in Ward 1. You answered the call when we had a vacancy, and then you answered the call again when you decided to run for that final year of the term and this term here. So again, thank you for stepping up for the ward. Look forward to working with the gentleman coming up to fill in the seat on April the 4th. See, I'm doing it now for the election, and all those who are running. Good luck to the incumbents and the challengers. But again, thank you to everyone and to staff again and the community. We say it time and time again, but I think this landfill fight really showed the true colors of the community and how everyone rallies together for a common cause, for a common good. Even though this is one that we're fighting a negative thing for our community, there's been a host of things that on the positive side that our community has come together and shown their true colors to their fellow man and their neighbors. So again, thank you to everyone for your support in that effort, and to staff. And again, one item again to our finance department. You've proven it again. Some of the other things that I do, other capacities, you make it seem easy compared to the other stuff that I see on other capacities. So keep it up, because I definitely use those as training aids for other agencies. So thanks again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And my comments are kind of along the same lines. Great comments this evening. I want to thank, especially want to thank the team that I work with on a daily basis now. It's turned my part-time mayoral position into a full-time one, but with the landfill fight. But it's worth it. I mean, it threatens our community, it threatens our surrounding communities, and it's the right thing to do. I feel very strongly about that, and it shows in the staff and the work that they perform on a daily basis to prepare me for public comments, to help me understand what other alternatives we have to fight this. Our legal battle, or legislative battle, I should say, isn't done yet. We have a lot of work to do with the Senate to convince enough senators that this bill is worth passing. As you know, it did pass in the House pretty well, actually 139 votes to 15. That was strong, and sent a huge message over to the Senate. The Senate's laboring over a couple of issues. I think we've got The one argument that the Monheisers, who are developing the property, have convinced some down there that they have already procured the proper acreage. They have not. We think they're disingenuous with that story, and but it has convinced enough of them that they have some property rights now. And I think what they're forgetting is that there are thousands of other people around that proposed site that have their own property rights. And they've had those property rights for a long time, many of whom have lived in that area for 15, 20, 30 years, some lifetime residents, particularly on the Kansas City side, that have lived there for decades. And to plop a landfill in the middle of this just seems ridiculous. We've talked to a lot of the landfill operators in and around the metropolitan area, all of whom have looked at us with that cockeyed puppy look like they're doing what at there? It's just a ridiculous location for even to think of it as a landfill site. But we also believe that there are internal elements within the city of Kansas City that continue to prompt them, the Monheisers, to continue with their effort, given that that land does sit within the farthest southeast portion of Kansas City. And I was even told by Lee Barnes, one of the council members for the city of Kansas City, that we should have no right telling Kansas City what they can do with their corporate city limits. I strongly disagreed with him and stepped on the elevator and said goodbye. There was no fighting with them on that. So it was, but the rest of the council, majority of the council down there, did see the right thing to do and did put a pause on applications for at least 6 months. Hopefully they'll engage the Mid-America Regional Council and the surrounding communities to have a regional discussion about, one, is there a need for a landfill? And obviously that's not the right location, so where might be the correct location if there is a need for a landfill? They still have, nobody's yet convinced me with any argument that there's a need in this area. In fact, it's the opposite. All the professionals in the industry that we've talked to, besides the Monheisers, have said that there is no need, and there are decades of space left in many of the surrounding landfills that we have access to. This is a soapbox that I get on a daily basis, so I apologize, but it is it is something that will affect our community. As you've seen, even the real estate industry has put a 5-mile radius around it for disclosure when anyone's selling or buying property in the region, and requiring any buyers to sign a disclosure that they've learned about it, they know about it before that sale goes through. So the environmental impact, the economic impact, the health impact on that region would be significant. And I need the people who have been engaged to stay engaged. What we heard time and time again was about the personal stories that the representatives received from people, from emails, phone calls, letters, talking about their personal situation and how impactful that was, rather than receiving a form letter that just said, we oppose a landfill. People took the time, they're still taking the time to put petitions together, to make those phone calls, to make those write those emails with a personal touch, and we need them to continue to stay engaged and continue to do that. It's very important for the success of this. And I think, as you know, in the Senate, or may not know, in the Senate, it only takes one senator to filibuster a bill, and they can hold it and up as hostage, and it won't get through to the end of the legislative session. So we need you to continue to reach out in the fashion that you have, with a compassionate story, a kind approach, one that virtually resonates with the human being in each and every one of those senators, and stay engaged with that. It is important. and we hope it'll get on their agenda within the next week or so. We've been told it might get delayed a couple of weeks, and that's why we need folks to continue to reach out to their senators and across the state as well. I feel good about it, but I also feel good about the team that I'm working with on a daily basis and the other strategies that they're putting together in the event that this one might not be successful. We're hoping this one will be successful. We were told by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources just today that in a meeting they had with the Monheisers are fearing the legislation passing. So they see it as a legitimate way to stop this landfill. And that's why we need this as badly as we do to protect our community and our neighbors around us, to include those who live in South Kansas City, because obviously they've been forgotten by City Hall itself. I think that's all I have on that. I could drone on a little bit more, but you can see that I'm passionate about it, and everyone up here is passionate about it. My staff is passionate about it, and we are going to protect Raymore. Finally, this is our last 7 p.m. meeting, regular meeting. We will have a 7 p.m. work session next Monday. But when we gather the week of, let's see, that will be April the 10th. April the 10th will be our next regular meeting. That will be at 6 p.m. So please mark your calendars for that as we start that, which was legislated last spring, I think. We pushed it till, or summer, I guess. We pushed it to the new term. In April, we were going to move our meetings up to 6 p.m., as many of the other committees had done and commissions, but we will now, we'll do that at that meeting on April the 10th. So I just want to remind you of that. Let's see, is that all I got here? Try to make it to the stream cleanup next weekend. That's always, if the weather's nice, it's kind of fun because you get the folks from the Missouri Conservation Department out there that'll point out we've found owls and hawks and eagles out there and taking pictures of them. It's kind of a fun time, and other little creatures of the streams that you wouldn't necessarily learn about unless you were out there cleaning up the stream, but it can be very rewarding. As with that, I will conclude my comments. We have no reason to move into executive session this evening, which is a rarity these days, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Townsend.
I move that we adjourn from the regular city council meeting for March the 27th.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Sir, hoorah to your comments, and I will second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor? And we are adjourned.